We'll wait till probably we'll probably wait till 6:02, 6:03 just to give, you know what I mean, a few more people. It's good to see everybody. So before we start, I'll just wait. Um, I'll just wait. I changed my background. Jen, did you notice?
I did. I really miss seeing Jigs though.
He's in front of me now, not behind me. So I you can still see him. He right now he's looking at me like, why are you talking about me? So he's a good boy. He is a good boy.
Mine are both sleeping, so hopefully I won't have somebody try to get up in my lap when I'm trying to talk.
Oh, that just went really big on me. Shoo. Okay. 2 more minutes. So we will have Jean Arena on at some point around 6:20 probably. Wherever she comes in, wherever we are, we'll stop and we'll have her do her our conversation with her. But please, if there's any questions that you can think of that you'd like to ask her, please unmute yourself and ask her. So that way all the questions aren't coming from me. That way we make her feel welcome and we can go from there. And you want to stay on for the big announcement at the end. I'm excited. So we'll talk about our December MASL message. And it's one you don't want to miss, and you'll see why. Jill, are we ready?
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay. Um, Hello, everyone. Welcome to our November MASL Message Live. This is an exciting time where we're able to share exciting updates within our organization itself. Hopefully, be able to talk to an author and then share some, and just a time to talk about the wonderful things that are happening with our organization. So, I'm going to turn it over immediately to our wonderful conference leadership team of Jen Baldwin, Becky Grisham, and Marlena Howerton.
Wonderful. Welcome, everybody. And we just wanted to give you a brief overview of our spring conference. I'm Jen Baldwin, and I have two wonderful co-chairs for spring conference this year, Becky Grisham and Marlena Howerton. They are both planning to be online tonight. I think Becky's Zoom was updating, so she'll be on pretty quick.
And I got done, so I made it.
Yay! And I see Marlena's smiling face too. So ladies, please pop in and say anything that I might have missed. Behind all of us, all three of us, is a wonderful spring conference committee that has been meeting once a month starting early in the school year and will continue until spring conference. And they have been making wonderful plans. So we'll talk about our conference. I don't know, do I change the slide or who changes the slide?
Jill does.
Okay.
Jill's in charge of everything.
Okay. So conference highlights. We are going to start a little bit later on Sunday. That is because of our conference falling on the same weekend as Palm Sunday and Passover. So there, I know in the past people have tried to check in really early. You can still register at starting at noon, but our very first event does not start until 2. And then our first breakout session isn't until 2:45. Speaking of breakout sessions, based on your feedback from previous conferences, we have made those either 45-minute sessions or 90-minute sessions. So there were several sessions that people wanted to have an extended time to learn. And we have also combined some of the smaller rooms. So in fact, we've added a couple different sessions in there because of our shorter time and our smaller rooms. You would think that we were getting less sessions than in the past, but we're actually going to be doing 8 sessions this year. So that's a fantastic way to change up conference a little bit. The other feedback, the biggest change we have noticed in terms of cost, we'll actually pay for a Sunday dinner instead of a Sunday boxed lunch. The Sunday dinner will be a buffet, and it will be when we actually have our keynote. So in the past, we've started the the conference with the keynote, but we will have a couple sessions before our keynote that night. Just like always, Sunday we'll continue with our region meetings and our diversity book club meeting. And this year we will be discussing in person That Librarian by Amanda Jones. We have a couple other diversity book club selections throughout the year, but this one will be the only one that we have in person. Everything else will be online. Monday and Tuesday schedules are pretty similar to what we have done in the past, except that our exhibit hall will be open after our Monday first session and recognition breakfast and general business meeting. So the exhibit hall opens on Monday, stays open until the close of conference on Tuesday. And then our Tuesday keynote conversation, our Tuesday keynote is a conversation. It's like a fireside chat instead of an actual talk. So that's our conference highlights for changes that are happening.
Hey, Jen,
Uh-huh.
I hate to interrupt. And first of all, sorry
Go
for
ahead.
Jean. I saw your name is Jennifer, and I'm like, holy guacamole, Batman, and my brain switched. So, so the question in the group is, if I come down Saturday and say Saturday night, can I check in Saturday, or do I need to come down Sunday and check in for conference officially?
No, you can absolutely check in on Saturday if you are staying at the conference. There is no registration open for our conference until Sunday, but you are definitely able to stay at the hotel Saturday night. Those of us that are on the board and also spring conference, there's actually several MASL meetings that are taking place on Saturday, so there will be people down there that you can probably run into, but that will actually help save some time with check-in as well. So that's a great idea. And I am working on, there's been several churches that have gotten back with me, but I am working on a church directory for that Sunday morning for those that want to leave and go to church. So that's a great question. I appreciate you watching that, Matt. Our Sunday keynote is school librarian Christina Holzweitz. She is from New York. And has been a Librarian of the Year for School Library Journal, Mover and Shaker. This past year, her school library was the National School Library of the Year from AASL. She has written Hacking School Libraries, which is a pretty short book that you can read to get some ideas to improve your library overall. She's a huge makerspace guru. In fact, that's what she won her School Librarian of the Year award for. All of her makerspace, or what she established her makerspace with, was community service. She also does a lot of individual group or individualized planning and bringing people together to come up with different professional development. So she's done lots of different things, and in charge of the DEMCO library book or library planner. She's been inspirational in many different ways. So she is our Sunday keynote, and we'll start off our journey together. Our Tuesday keynote is Michael Threets, who I think everybody is very, very, very excited to see. He is well known for his social media post on Library Joy. Currently works with PBS and is their librarian that's on staff there. So he's been doing lots of commercials as well on PBS. He was a public librarian in Solano County, California. So, and has received lots of different awards, including the I Love My Librarian award just this past year. So he will be there on Tuesday and will be very exciting. Our spotlight speakers I have been announcing since our fall PD. We have 3 of them. The first one is Becky Calzada. She is the AASL National President this year, and will be doing a couple different sessions for us. She'll have one session on just AASL and why it's important to join and what that organization can do for us. And not only that, what we can do for the organization in terms of volunteering and serving on committees, things like that. She will also do a session on advocacy and building coalitions. That was a request by our MASL leadership based on her experience with the Texas freedom fighters. Darby Valentini Huff, is a former Missouri's Teacher of the Year and has different sessions planned. She is doing the STEM Storytime Recipe for Success, as well as supporting student mental well-being, a librarian's role. She has been very big recently into SEL and the counseling world and wanted to show how librarians and counselors can work together. But she's also been in the classroom in the gifted area as well. And so she has lots of different ideas. I know she currently does some Tech Tip Tuesdays that I follow her with on social media. So, and then backed by popular demand is Kimberly Young. She's the Demco book doctor. She will still do her book care and repair workshop that was similar to what was last year. But she is also going to be doing a new workshop called More Books in More Hands, which is the Demco's workshop that she has planned in terms of collection development and circulation statistics. So increasing your circulation and having a library that is built around your students' needs. Those are our 3 spotlight speakers. We do have some upcoming deadlines. Don Moore is one of our SGR people in the background that has been helping us plan spring conference. That Tuesday or Monday lunch will still be our SGR recognition luncheon. So we will have lots of time to recognize those that have won those special awards. November 15th, don't forget that the School Librarian of the Year application deadline has been extended. Everybody can apply for that. December 15th is the normal deadline for all the other SGR applications. That is also the deadline to submit a workshop proposal. And then we also don't want you to forget that the January 31st is our early bird registration deadline. And that is the last day that you can qualify to get a t-shirt for free. So those are the upcoming deadlines for spring conference. I feel like I'm going through things really fast, so feel free to hop on and type in questions or interrupt me at any point. Curate Your Crowd is one of those things that have started and we will continue this year. I know all 3 of the spring conference leaders, Becky, Marlena, and I have worked in a K-12 library world. And so these people that are attending spring conference solo are special and dear to our hearts. We want to make sure that every member feels welcome and gives them another person, a network to touch base with throughout the conference. And then that network will, I'm sure, continue. So we have Jennifer Parker and Lauren Martin, who are actually in charge of our membership or part of our membership committee this year. They are in charge of Curate Your Crowd. And so they will be planning different events, including helping plan the first time attendee and Curate Your Crowd meet and greet that starts our conference off on that Sunday from 2 to 2:30. They will probably end up having a reserved table at trivia night for those that are Curate Your Crowd so that you can be part of a team. And then they will probably reserve seats to eat together at meals. So those are just some ideas that we want to ensure that everyone feels welcome. Our new members, our returning members, our retirees, we want to support you through your entire library journey. So that is our way to do that through Curate Your Crowd.
Thanks, Jen. Are there any questions for the group, for Jen, Becky, or Marlena? It's a huge endeavor, and we thank you for you and your team for leading us through. I look forward to it. I think it's a great theme journey together, and I look forward to attending the sessions and listening to the keynote. So thank you. We are moving on to names for the new Readers Award. We have a new Readers Award coming out, and many of you know that it kind of bridges the gap between the Show Me's and the Mark Twain's, and we will be sending out a survey that will allow students from across our state to vote on which name should be selected. The choices are Discovery Readers Award, the Hawthorne Readers Award, or the Osage Readers Award. All of those have ties within the state of Missouri, much like the other Readers Award. When we send the form out, you will vote as, you will just tell us the total number of students who voted in your school for each of those awards. What will happen is we will send that out probably the beginning of the December, and we will expect those back before you leave for winter break. And that way, then in January, we can start creating a logo and having our team work on a logo. And then that will be announced at spring conference in April. So I'm looking forward to that. So please reach out if you have any questions about the new Readers Award. And our next exciting event here on MASL Message Live is we have Jen here, who is the author of Acorn Was a Little Wild. And I will tell you that I read, well, because I'm an elementary librarian, as all any elementary librarian, we share those books with our students. And Acorn Was a Little Wild was, my kids loved it so very, very much. They even applauded at the end of the story, which I thought was amazing. And so I'm so happy that Jen is here to talk to us about the book and about herself. And when I talked to her last, I sent her an email. And sorry, Jen, this is not part of the list of questions I sent you. But when I sent you an email before, I asked her if she'd be willing to participate in this, and she said, sure, but I'm in the middle of a hurricane. And so I am so glad that you're here, and I look forward to talking to you. So to start the conversation, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, Matt, for inviting me. It's so nice to be here and to talk to all of you guys today. My name is Jen Arena, and as you can see, I'm the author of Acorn Was a Little Wild. I've been writing for a while, ever since I got my first job in publishing. So I kind of had an unusual path into becoming a writer, where I started off where I loved to read so much, and what I wanted to do when I got a little older was I wanted to work in publishing, and I wanted to be an editor. So I went to New York, as one does if you want to be an editor, and got a job as an editorial assistant at Grasset and Dunlap, which was an imprint of Putnam at the time. And Grasset and Dunlap was most famous for publishing like the Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boy books. And so I answered a lot of fan mail for a while, but I moved up the ranks of editing. And in the whole time I was doing that, I was also writing on the side. Because Grasset and Dunlap was a publisher that did a lot of mass market titles. And so my boss, who is Jane O'Connor, who is, you might know her from Fancy Nancy, she would give me projects to write. And so that's how I kind of got into writing. It was through the back door. And she liked what I wrote, and so she kept giving more and more projects. And so I loved being an editor, and then I also loved being a writer. And eventually, I ended up, my husband is a physicist, and we were living on Long Island, and he decided he wanted to change jobs and go into academia. And so he got a job down in Tampa, Florida. And at that point, I shifted my focus away from corporate publishing and more to the writing side. And it's been wonderful because I've had such a blast writing books for kids, and I've had a lot of luck getting things published. And I'm just so honored to hear how much you enjoy reading Acorn Was a Little Wild, and just so flattered that kids actually like hearing it. And that they clap at the end. So thank you all. That's a little bit about me. And of course I can answer any more questions you have. It's a weird journey.
So our next question is, so what was the inspiration for the book? Like how did you come up with the idea Acorn Was a Little Wild?
It was inspired by my dog. So I have a little black dog who is sleeping right next to me right now, and she is absolutely squirrel obsessed. And our house in Tampa is right next to a big park. So I take her for walks in that park 2 or 3 times a day. And it's especially good as a writer when you get in your head to go for a walk and think things out. And so I walk her in the park and she'll just stop and dig in her paws and stare at the squirrels. And just, she wants to chase them so badly. So I've spent a lot of time watching squirrels and watching squirrel behaviors. And here in Tampa, they have these beautiful, absolutely beautiful live oak trees that are very thick with the branches that come down on the sides. And they have all the Spanish moss dripping off of them. And so I was in the park with my dog and saw a squirrel eating an acorn, nibbling an acorn. And the first line just popped into my head, acorn was a nut. And I went home and I was like, that's a good line. That's a really good line. So I went home and I opened up my laptop and I wrote it down and I stared at it and I couldn't think of what came next. And so I saved the file, and then a couple months later, I opened it back up, and the next 4 lines came out. And I was like, okay, that's good. What comes next? And then I stopped and I put it away for another couple months. And then the next time I opened that file, the rest of the story just came out. So it was thanks to my dog and thanks to walking outside and being in nature, which is very fitting for the story that I ended up writing.
Well, and I loved, and my kids loved the story too, right? And the idea of like, there is some science involved too, like why do acorns get buried? And so I think it's very nice to see that the connections through everything. And you're speaking to a good group because we all love dogs, right? Because here's my dog Jigs, he's sitting here on my lap. So, he's sitting here. And so, yes, you're in a good group because I think we're all pet lovers.
Good. You'll forgive me if she starts barking at something.
No, trust me. We'll probably ask you to show her before the end of the conversation.
Okay, I'll make her get up.
Oh, good. So our next question is, and so being on a Readers Award list is not unfamiliar to you, right? You were on our Missouri building blocks for Marta Big and Small, which again my kindergartners loved. And so. How did you react when you got the news that your book made it to a finalist on our Show Me Readers Award list?
Well, I was absolutely thrilled. And of course, I love the state of Missouri because, as you said, Marta Big and Small was on the Building Blocks Award list. And that was just such a huge honor. That was one of my earlier titles. And so at that point, I was in shock when that book got listed because I didn't think of myself as the type of author who would get on state award lists. And so when Acorn was a little while made the Show Me Award list, I was blown away. It was, it's interesting because it's not a book, it's a book that I wrote for kids. And it's just so wonderful to see it being embraced by kids and by librarians and teachers. And that's where I feel like all the momentum comes from is people using it in the classroom. It's very gratifying to see that recognized. But then when I went and I looked at the list of the other books that were nominated for this or made the finalist list this year, it's just so flattering to be on a list with Yetis Are the Worst and Creepy Crayon and Rick the Rock. I mean, these are just amazing books. The Library Fish. I love all these books. And to think, there she goes. Sorry about that. Just to think that my list is, that my book is on the same level as those books and that kids like it the same way is just, it's such a huge, huge honor. So I was blown away, really just so honored.
Well, I'm glad. And the book, so, brings so much joy to our kids, right? And I think I wish you could have heard, as I read the story aloud to class after class, how much joy it brought. And one of the librarians in our group, Sheila, said, "My students loved your book, Jen. We decorated our own wild acorns last week," and she included a picture in the thing. So hopefully you'll be able to check the chat out.
I'd love to see that. I got to find where the chat is. Oh, there it is. Okay.
And so, something I've always been interested in, can you talk about the collaboration process between the author and the illustrator?
It's interesting because, as I mentioned, I worked in publishing for many years as an editor. And in general, for most books, the illustrators and the writers do not overlap at all, do not collaborate on an act. Like there's the editor and the art director act as a go-between between the author and the illustrator. And I respect that a lot because when I write a manuscript, I want the illustrator to bring their vision to it because I'm a visual person, but that's not my area of expertise. And so if I try to micromanage what an illustrator is going to do, I feel like it would limit the book. And so for an illustrator to just go out there and bring what they see based on what's in the story that I wrote, based on the words, it's always to me way more inspiring than if they just were able to translate what I had in my head on the page. So for example, with Acorn Was a Little Wild, the spread that it just blew me away when I saw it is the one, I don't know if you remember, with the seasons. I'm going to find it. And it's this one.
Yeah.
And the text is so minimal. I mean, it was like day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. You know, it's just the kind of thing that you just write and you don't even think about it. And Jessica just came up with this spread that when I saw it, I couldn't believe how beautiful it was and how it just conveyed the passage of time. And she was the one who brought the seasons in like that. And it reminds me of Richard Scarry's I Am a Bunny. And so I feel like there's so many references there. But the funny thing is, I could pass Jessica Gibson on the street and I wouldn't recognize, I wouldn't know who she was. I've never met her. I don't think I've ever even seen a picture of her online. If you go to her website, she's got her portfolio, but she doesn't have any. So I don't even know what she looks like. And so it's kind of amazing to think that the two of us in our two little corners of the world came together through the magic of publishing to create a book that I'm just unbelievably proud of, and that her art I just think is so inspirational and makes kids so happy. Like when they look at that picture, a lot of kids, when they look at the picture of the seasons, they love the fact that in winter Acorn has his tongue sticking out to catch the snowflakes. And of course that's not something I would have put in the text, and it wasn't in an art note or anything, but it's something that she just brings there. And kids also seem to love the ones where the acorns are kind of like hang gliding or parachuting or surfing off the tree. And that's what an illustrator can do. They can make something that's way better than anything that you ever imagined. But then there's also some collaboration in the sense that, like, when Acorn first pops up through the ground, the original illustration she had was not very accurate for what an acorn sprout would look like. And so for me, it was very important because, as you mentioned, I do think it can be used to teach elements of science and the life cycle of a tree. So it was very important to me to have her illustrations are not realistic in any sense, but I wanted it to be accurate in how an acorn sprouts up. And so I'd sent her a bunch of references on what an acorn looks like underground when it's starting to sprout and what it looks like when it first comes up through the ground. So that's the kind of collaboration. But yeah, I would love to, talk to her someday. I keep hoping someday she will end up at the same conference or festival, and maybe someday it will happen. For example, with Marta Big and Small, Angela Dominguez and I, we've overlapped a few times, and have gotten to be good friends, both on social media and to seeing each other, at conferences and things like that. So that's really nice.
Well, I feel like, so I could be wrong, but I feel like it's like a surprise, like birthday gift, right? When you get the pictures and you open it up, because if there's very little collaboration, right, then it really is a surprise for you as you open what the illustrator has envisioned your story to be.
It's the most amazing gift you can get. I think that's a really good analogy, because it's you open it up and I'm so rarely disappointed in something that an illustrator has done. There'll be tweaks and stuff, but I'm always amazed at the talent they bring to it, and they're doing something that I can't do. I can't, paint like that. And so, yeah. And again, it's like you set this little spark and you get to see what or you're giving the seed, maybe would be a better analogy here with talking about an acorn, and you're giving them the seed, and it's you just don't know what's going to blossom out of it. And what blossoms out of it, the art can be just unbelievably beautiful. And then again, those little touches that you just know when the illustrator is having fun with a story that you've written, when they put that kind of stuff in.
Yeah, I loved it. In the chat, I'm going to say two more things. Dawn said this is my favorite picture. Oh, that was her favorite picture in the book. And then Savannah says, my second grade daughter came in and told her who you were. She gasped, put her hands on her mouth, and said, "Wow, that's her." So I just want to show that.
Well, thank you so much. Please thank your daughter.
So my final question is, what's next for you? What's on the horizon?
I have some really fun things in the works right now. I have another little series going that the first book was called Besos for Baby, and it's a young board book that's in both Spanish and English, kind of like Marta Big and Small. And it's just a very sweet book that I wrote. My husband's from Argentina, and and his whole family speaks Spanish at home. He grew up speaking Spanish in the home. And so it's kind of a book that I saw as bridging blended families, so where one person in the family might speak Spanish and the other person, when they get married, does not. And so that's done really well. And then I did a follow-up book called Sonrisas for Baby. And the publisher reached out to me earlier in this year, and they wanted abrazos for baby, which means hugs in Spanish. So speaking of the gift of the art, I just got the sketches for that last week, and I'm just absolutely blown away. I mean, Blanca Gomez, her art is just so sweet, adorable, simple, but very powerful and colorful. And so I'm really excited about that one. I can't like me remember when it's coming out, but it might be 2025. And then I have another book that I'm really excited about. It's another story, and it's about a woolly mammoth who does not want to get its hair cut. And so the thing about it's a fun story that the inspiration was actually happened during the pandemic. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't get my hair cut for a long time. And I felt a bit like a woolly mammoth because it was very long, and it wasn't doing what I wanted to do. But it kind of also, this woolly mammoth, the fears that they have are about they're a little afraid of getting their hair cut. It's not just that they like the way it looks or that they can't go to a hairdresser because of a pandemic. It's more that they're afraid of getting their hair cut, and that if they get their hair cut, they might not be a woolly mammoth anymore. They might be an elephant. So it's a very sweet story. It's coming out from Penguin. And again, I can't remember what year. I should have checked that as well. But so yeah, keep an eye out for those two.
So I'm going to add another question here, because so you talk about, like, you create this and you write this, and then how many years after you write something does it take for it to be like published?
It takes a long time, actually. Okay. It takes a really long time. I mean, I talked about, I'm sure other people, their processes, I tend to marinate in books a long time when I'm writing them, and picture books especially. You can change a couple words here, you can cut out words, and it changes everything. It changes the impact. Acorn was a little wild. I think I started writing it in like 2018. And I think I was ready to, I sent it to my agent around 2019. And then it took a year to sell. And I remember getting the offer on it from Simon and Schuster in the winter of 2020. And then everything shut down. So it felt a bit like Acorn being buried in the dark for a little while there. But then it came out in 2022. So actually that's pretty quick. That's very standard for about 2 years from the time when it gets acquired to when it publishes. And that's in part because, and now I'm putting on my editor hat here, because they need a very long lead time to sell into bookstores. So at this point, when publishers sell books into bookstores, and this is really not driven by your independent bookstores, this is driven by your Barnes and Nobles and, you know, Target and stuff like that. They need to be selling from fully illustrated books. So they're selling a year out using a fully illustrated ARC or dummy at that point. So that's why it takes so long. But I've also had books that took even like 2 years. Again, like I said, it's pretty good. A book I wrote, Give, that was really nice. That got acquired in, I want to say like 2017 and didn't get published till 2023. So it can be real. And I went through like 2 agents during that time too. So it can be a very, very long process. And for that, it's because, again, like I said, my process takes a while for writing, but it's nothing compared to the amount of time it takes for an illustrator to do all those drawings for a 24 or 32 page book. I'm in such awe of everything illustrators do and the time it takes, and like they will dedicate a whole year of their lives to one book, and that's amazing because nobody gets paid that much money to do this. So yeah.
Well, I'm going to say I absolutely loved Acorn Was a Little Wild. And are there any questions for Jen from the group? Any questions? Well, so how big is your dog?
Saoirse, come here. She is a good medium-sized dog. Come on, up, Saoirse, up. Oh, she's.
That's like
I'll pick her up.
you ask your dog to perform and he never does, right? Isn't that how it always works?
Say hi.
Oh, look.
She's like, what are you doing to me?
That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
That just made our night.
Hey, I have a quick question.
Yes.
Yeah, Becky.
What was your favorite book that you've written?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, what was your favorite book that you've written?
I mean, I love Acorn Was a Little Wild. When I wrote it, I told my agent, I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever written. It really, really has to sell. I really hope we can find a good home for it, an editor who loves it as much as I do. And so it's definitely, it might be my favorite book I've written. I have a very soft spot for the first book I ever wrote, which, as I told you, was when I was an editorial assistant. And it was an easy to read, long out of print, called Stars. And that book just made me so happy when it was published, again, because the art was amazing. But it's your very first book. There's just something so special about that. But what I love about Acorn Was a Little Wild, and why it's probably my absolute favorite, is the reactions I get from people who read it. And I mean, kids do really seem to love it, but I get a lot of parents who tell me, thank you so much for writing a book about a wild acorn, because they have kids who have been told that they're wild, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of times people want the quiet kids, but some of the little wild kids can turn out to be wonderful big oaks as well. And I went to a festival the other day and I met another author who told me that she read my book and she writes middle grade, and she felt it really spoke to her because she is in her 30s now, and she feels like she's met someone and they bought a house together with a farm, and she was somebody who loved to travel the world and do things. And she said that Acorn Was a Little Wild had a lot of meaning for her because she felt like she was putting down roots and growing, and that wasn't a bad thing. She wasn't going to lose her wild side. So it's been a really special book for those reasons, because it speaks to people in different ways, but it also, I never thought I would write a picture book that would speak to adults as well as kids in a way that can really touch them. So.
And and books are so powerful, right? I mean, that's the beauty of those books, right? Because and when I read a book, does it mean you get the same emotional connection and feeling to if you read the same book? And I think that's the beauty of and why there's important that we have a wide variety of books to choose from. And I think that it is absolutely incredible. And so Dawn asked the question, what was your favorite book growing up?
My favorite book growing up was Leo the Late Bloomer. My older sister used to call me a late bloomer because she was 4 years older than me. So of course I was not able to do the things she was able to do. But that book, and I don't know if you guys know it, but the art in that book is just so bright and gorgeous. And then when he blooms, I think it's just so joyful because he paints and he sings and he does all these great things. And it's funny because looking back on it, I'm like, well, that's so interesting that that's the book that really spoke to me because I went on to have a creative career. I'm not painting, but you know, I am being creative and maybe it was a little late blooming on my part too.
That's amazing. Dawn loved the book, obviously. And so, Jen, I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us librarians here in Missouri. We are recording this. I should have told you that first. I'm so sorry. And then we share it out through so all of our entire membership can watch it. But you have been absolutely fabulous, and I thank you so much for taking the time out. First of all, for writing a wonderful story. Acorn Was a Little Wild, which is absolutely fabulous, and then taking time out of your busy schedule to spend a few minutes with us here in Missouri.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. This was great. And thank you for everything you've done to share Acorn Was a Little Wild with the kids and students that are in your libraries. I really, really appreciate it. And this is a huge honor for me. So thank you.
Well, it's well deserved. Well deserved. So thank you so much. We are going to continue with Gabby Weston, who's going to talk to us about the upcoming book club.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am very excited to share with you guys. First of all, I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I love that. So I'm very excited to share with the group the book Share Better and Stress Less. For anyone that knows me knows that I have my sticky notes. I still have about 30 more pages left to read, but it will be full of sticky notes for sure. But Thursday, November 14th at 7 p.m., it will be a virtual book club discussion. I'm very excited to see whoever decides to sign up tonight or in the next couple of days. Hopefully, I have the opportunity to reflect with you guys on November 14th at our MASL Diversity Book Club. I believe that's all that I wanted to share.
Thanks, Gabby. I have the book and I'm reading it. I will promise you I'll be finished for the MASL Diversity Book Club. I will be finished, Gabby, I promise.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And please register if you haven't registered. And the nice part about it is, even if you haven't read the book, the nice part about it is even just listening to the rich discussion and being part of that is so powerful. Would you agree?
I would agree. Honestly, now I will say I have personally read every book because I'm obsessed with the books that we select. But I would say even if you're someone that didn't have the opportunity to read the book, I feel like the discussions are very rich. I reflect a lot. I feel like there are takeaways from every book club that I get from these meetings. So I'm very excited this year with the selection that we have in general. I mean, for those who have already signed up, if you guys are already aware, Accountable is another title that we're doing February 6th, and of course, that librarian, which will be at Spring Conference in person, Sunday, April 13th. So I would say our lineup this year is pretty exciting. So yeah.
Thank you. Our last thing before we sign off is our MASL message for December. So please make sure you share this far and wide. I wanted to do something different in December, and it's a little matte focused. So sorry, you have to bear with me here, but it's called My Favorite Things. And so it's a whole night of just giving away free things. So please make sure you register early, make sure you attend, because we will have prizes from some of my favorite things like Novel Effect. Our Scholastic Book Fair is MASL's giving away free stuff. Demco is giving away front-facing bookshelf thing, which is one of my favorite things. Playway is going to be here, and so Crumble, and then Taryn Souders will be here also to talk to you about her upcoming book as well. But please make sure you register early and make sure you attend, because I'm going to make a rule that you have to be present to win. So it should be, we have almost $1,000 worth of prizes. So it should be a pretty fantastic event. So just a few of my favorite things. And then, so we are signing off. I want to say a big thank you to Jen Arena for attending tonight. She is one amazing author, and the book that she wrote, again, if you haven't read it, you will if you are at elementary school librarian, because it's part of our Show Me collection and it's absolutely fabulous. I would also like to thank, and I always forget to do this, I would need to say thank you to Jill Hancock. Without her, nothing would ever be possible. She is a great executive director is what my official term for is. I don't think she likes that, but that's what I'm calling her. She makes sure MASL stays up and running and does everything along with MASL Wise. And then a big thanks to, of course, our spring conference team. Jen, Becky, and Marlena. And then finally, most importantly, thanks to Gabby for talking about the Diversity Book Club. And last but not least, thank you all for taking time out of your busy Monday to spend, I guess, 47 minutes with us here. So you are greatly appreciated. Have a great Thanksgiving, and make sure you mark your calendars, because we will see you on December 9th. You don't want to miss it. I'm not sure how it's going to go, but we'll make it work. Bye, guys. Have a good evening.